This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with a first for me because I don't know if she remembers, but I actually interviewed you before as Tyler Rex many, many years ago. Now you have made the transition to Gabbi Tuft. You're after a long break from the ring, I believe over 10 years, you made your return to the ring as now a female, and you wrestled in the Los Angeles area for the United Wrestling Network on a television taping last night, which is pretty cool. How's it going?
Everything's great. I'm kind of on cloud nine right now. It feels
New
good.
York Times. You made the
Yes.
New York Times.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible to see that just pop up. Just a whole article on my return. I guess they picked up the story the day before the match and they ran it. So it was an excellent article. I was honored to be in that.
So this is quite a transition from the last time I talked to you. Can
Just
you
a
tell
little.
us the story?
Yeah. Of well, which story? I have so many
Well,
about my
how
gender
okay, well,
transition. Or
maybe I'll say one thing. I have watched a lot of interviews with you, or at least not a lot, but let's say three or four, and I've seen interviews with you before you made the transition, and I
okay.
do have to say you seem a lot happier and more
Yeah,
content now.
definitely.
So when did this start, as far as like this wanting to be something? I don't even know how to conduct this interview, but
No, it's fine.
explain
And
to me
you
the
can't
transition.
offend me. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm not a special snowflake. You can't ask any wrong questions. Like I don't get angry or upset. Like a lot of the community, like I guess my community, whatever you want to call it, people just fly off the handle for no reason. So I'd rather answer questions and not be offended by any of them. So yeah, when I was you know I tried to chase it back to when I was a kid. Like I used to get dressed up in my mom's clothes when I was real young, and then I just buried it. Like I watched my friends get beat up and stuff for acting feminine. So I'm like, well, I guess we don't do that. So, but I was born in '78. I'm a kid of the '80s, and so I had no context for what I think I was feeling at the time. So I lived my life as a guy, and never thought twice about it. But it was like 36 ish, like long after I'd retired from WWE. I just started kind of having these like feelings and these tendencies, and it just slowly started playing out. And then when I was, I think it was 41st, 42nd, week before my 42nd birthday. How old am I now? I don't know. it was 2020. I don't even want to think about how old I am. I started my transition. It was October 2020. I started my transition. So came on later in life, and I don't know why. I've done a lot of soul searching, trying to figure out, what was the cause of it. If I was born this way, if it was something else, if it's a trauma response or whatever. But yeah, you're right. I am much happier now versus who I used to be.
And you're married, so this is where it's a little confusing to a lot of people because
Yeah.
most people think if you transition to a woman, it would mean that you have feelings for guys, I guess, but you're still with your wife from what I understand, and you
Kind
seem
of.
happy. She seems accepted with it, and you have
Yeah.
kids, but your kids still call you dad apparently. So how can you
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
that?
Sure. So we're separated. We're still technically married on paper, and it's more about just trying to every time we try to finalize the divorce decree, that's when we kind of butt heads because there's a lot of there's 26 years of finances tied up and stuff, and so we just kind of said, look, it doesn't really matter right now. Like we're separated, we love each other, we're still best friends, and every time we talk about like the decree, we just kind of start fighting. So we're like, it doesn't matter. So we live separately. We have one daughter. Her name's Mia. She's 12, and yeah, she still calls me dad. But she asked when I was just starting my transition. She's like, "What do I call you? Like, what do you want to call me?" She goes, "Can I call you dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. It's fine." I'd rather her have some stability in her life. This transition is pretty damn unstable for a family, and so if it gives her a little bit of stability, I'm totally fine with that.
But I understand, and this might be funny to some people, like she'll call you dad in public. People are
Oh yeah,
like, "What?"
yeah. Like we'll be in the grocery store from like 2 aisles down. She's like, "Dad, hey, can I get this?" And people are looking around like, "What's going on?" And like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, that's the tip I needed." I'm like, "Yeah, it's exactly what you think it is."
So with your partner, your ex-wife, I guess originally she was doing interviews and stuff. So I guess something changed along the way. When did you start to explain this to her? Because I'm sure that must have been something difficult to tell her.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was summer of 2020. It was like amidst the pandemic. It was just I was getting dressed up in female clothes, and she was very, accepting of it and encouraging. She's like, "Hey, do you want me to do your makeup?" I'm like, "I guess let's try it." She showed me how to do makeup and helped me with hair and all this stuff. Um, and I think she knew. I don't think I know she knew before I did the direction it was actually heading. Because about a year after I started my transition, she told me a story. She said, "Yeah, I called my mom that summer." And I said, "Hey, Mom, you and the family may want to take a trip out because I don't think Gabe is going to be here much longer," referring to me transitioning to female. So I think the writing was pretty much on the wall, and she saw it coming. So she's been very accepting the whole time. And yeah, she's doing interviews in the beginning, but as we separated and as we started going through our divorce process, she just needed some time to breathe. And I can't be mad at her for that. It's like her husband pretty much died and she lost the love of her life, so to speak. And so we had to go through this big like rebirth. And this I had to figure out who I was. She had to figure out who she was on her own for the first time. We had been together since she was 16 years old. So I was the guy that took care of her whole life. And so now she had to go kind of figure out how to do all that. So there was just this big time frame where we were really just trying to understand how to get by emotionally.
Yeah, because it's a big change. I remember just before this was reported, because I had done an interview with you years ago, a fan who had been a big fan of yours and was following you closely told me about this transition. And he was like saying, maybe you should start following this story. It appears something big is going to happen here. And I honestly didn't believe him.
Oh,
Because you
really?
came across as such, yeah, you came across as such a jock. I remember I
Yeah.
paid absolutely no attention to this
Who's this
email.
nerd telling you that this big old dude's going to transition?
Yeah, and then literally like a month and a half later, I'm like, oh my God, this was true.
It was right.
So yeah, this was a long time coming for sure. Have you been like staying in contact with friends in the wrestling business over this time, and how have
Oh,
they
yeah.
reacted?
Everybody's been super cool. Brian Myers, one of my good buddies, he was my tag partner, Hawkins. We talk from time to time. He's super accepting. Cardona, same way. Zack Ryder, now Matt Cardona. I was just chatting with him. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago because we were setting up this match, this re-debut match, and I just had to ask him questions like, "Hey, I got questions, dude." He's like, "Let's hop on a call." I'm like, "Okay." So it's like, "How are the indies?" He's like, "The indies are effing wild." So, but yeah, I mean, the guys I was on the roster with, they're all still super cool. Like I went backstage at AEW at one point around Valentine's Day. I saw everybody that I had been on the roster with that had gone over there, like Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Edge, Jericho, Christian, Jomo, Taya Valkyrie, saw Thunder. Like just everybody was so warm and welcoming. And then I've been over at the dungeon training with Natty Neidhart and Tyson Kidd. I fly out there on my own dime to go train. I've been over there I think 5 or 6 times now. But same thing. Everybody's so accepting. Natty and I have always been friends. TJ and I have always been friends. But it was really cool to see people I didn't know previously when I got to the dungeon. So I got to train with Liv Morgan. I trained with BFAB several times. Dawkins, Tahuti. Like, I mean, they're all incredible people and they were all very accepting. So it was really fun to just feel accepted, and not have to worry about what people thought. They were just like, "No, you're still you, just different shell."
Yeah, TJ and Natty are great. I know them from the original Dungeon before they've
Oh
had all
yeah,
this great success.
yeah, yeah.
So, is it what was it like when like you first saw TJ again? Because like he's about as straight as they come. Only ever
I know.
been with Natty, and here he is seeing
Right.
you again as a girl, as a
Yeah.
female,
Yeah.
and like I've never had a friend transition
Transition.
so drastically like that. So is at first is it a little like weird and then eventually it just goes back to how it was? Or is it
It's
just
only weird if
automatically
like,
there?
yeah, and that's I think how it was. Like, it's only weird if like we wanted to be weird, and Natty got there before TJ the first time I was at the dungeon, and so I was training quite a bit, and I was in there, and like it was kind of cool because Natty and I we've developed a relationship we didn't have before because before. TJ was my bro and Natty was TJ's girlfriend. And so there was always that line of respect. And I didn't get to know Natty the way I know her now. So her and I, we text a lot, we talk a lot when I'm at the dungeon, and it's just like, it's like it's girl stuff. But when TJ showed up, I just slid out of the ring. I'm like, hey, buddy. He's like, oh my God, hi. Gave me a big hug. And yeah, I think there was like that initial moment of like, okay, I gotta process what I'm seeing. He didn't show it, but I could just kind of feel it. But then after that, we just started chatting, and it's like I never left. We just were talking about all the old stuff that we did at FCW and on like early on the roster. We were joking about some of the ribs that we did and just some of the fun matches we had, and we just picked right up where we left off. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's had great success as an agent, and she's one of the most successful divas of all time. It'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see. I think her contracts may or may not have run out by now, but it'll be
Oh,
interesting to see her next. Yeah, I believe she's a free agent right now.
oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Natty and I
been
are
in the
great friends. Oh, I
news.
didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's apparently a lot of people think she'll stay in WWE, but there's always AEW is an option that was not there when you were in WWE
Right there.
because there was just one like company that paid good money back then. Now there's AEW. AEW has Nyla Rose,
Yeah,
who is quite popular and
yeah.
one of their
I've met Nyla. She's
staples.
great.
And then I forget the name of the one in
Giselle
Giselle
Shaw.
Shaw. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's had been popular in TNA. She's actually got over quite well. WWE
right.
has not had someone that's transitioned in WWE yet.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference of a company? I know you only just had your first match back, but everybody's talking about it. It's in the New York Times, so
I
obviously they got to be aware, and you might be on their radar at the
I'm
very
sure I'm on the
least.
radar after last night. Here's what I'll say to that. Both companies have incredible rosters of incredible talent. And at both companies, there are people that I was on the WWE roster with that I'm incredible friends with still, both talent and staff, administrative staff. And no matter where I end up, let me just preface it with I definitely, my plan is to be on one of the bigger stages. No matter where I end up, I know that we're going to have banger matches. I know that the character I have, I know that Mother is going to get across very well. There's a lot of emotion, there's a ton of story built in. And both places offer an incredible opportunity to tell that story and to keep the fans emotionally engaged with what we have going on. So wherever it may be, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but wherever it may be, it's gonna be good.
Well, let's put up the clip you sent
Oh
of
sure.
this new character from last night. It was a packed house. The Los Angeles area.
Yeah.
Where exactly was it? It was in.
It was at the Improv Theater at the Irvine Spectrum Center, so in Orange County, California, and sold out house. So I think we had about 500 or 600 people there.
Very good. All right, let's sit.
Down here, springboard.
So you got the "This is awesome" chant in your first match back. You got to be
Yep.
happy about that.
Oh, it was an incredible moment. Like we set up the main. J Rod and I were main, and I was very insistent that we have a promo segment because this new character, she's all emotion, and I knew the fans were not going to know if they were supposed to cheer for me or boo me, and I needed a promo segment to get that across. I needed them to understand who this character and this person, this persona was. So we had a 10-minute promo segment that just sucked them in, and they knew exactly who to love and who to hate. And then we went 19 minutes in the main event. So this was middle of the comeback. It was towards the end, towards the finish. we had a 6.5, 7-minute go home, I think is what it worked out to be. It was a long finish, and that was right after the springboard meteora, and the crowd just popped for that. And I haven't, you know what's cool is I planned that way. I haven't seen anybody do a springboard meteora. I'm like, I'm gonna take that. So that was my gift to the to the house that night. But to hear them pop for that, and then to hear the "This is awesome" chants after, I was like, we did what we came to do, and it feels effing good.
What made you actually want to get back into wrestling? Because obviously you've been out of it 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
You may have like lost the love for it at some point. I know you had issues with John Cena backstage and stuff, but is that just kind
Yeah.
of what killed it for you?
No, the thing that happened with John, like I look back on it, and it's like old hat. I don't hold any hard feelings against him, and I look at it, I'm like, you know what? He at the time he was the face of the company, and he's still a big face in the company. And if you know, I don't want to say too much about it, but I was like, yeah, you know what? It was all good. So I like. And I guarantee he probably doesn't remember it. I was like nobody at the time, and so it was just a small thing. But that wasn't why I left. I left long after that, and it was because I wanted to spend time with my daughter. She was crying. She was 8 months old. She was crying every time I left. I was gone 4 or 5 days a week, and I'm like, I can't be a FaceTime parent. I need to watch my daughter grow up. So I walked into Raw after Slam, and I just said, I'm done. I gotta go be a dad. And Hunter was super understanding. He's got kids of his own. And he was like, no problem. You're welcome back anytime. Door's always open for you. So I left that day. And the next day, my daughter took her first steps. So I knew I did the right thing. But yeah, what was the second half of that question, Hannibal? I kind of lost
Well,
track. I got all emotional.
the schedule is a lot easier now, so that's good in both companies, particularly AEW. But like, what ignited the fire in you? Because you've
Oh,
transitioned for a while now. It's not like you
yeah.
transitioned and got back in. At some
Right.
point, you've decided, okay, I'm going to
Yes.
get back into wrestling.
Yeah. I had no intent on ever going back. I was done. Like when I walked out, I'm like, I'm done. That's it. I'm closed that chapter on my book. It was a great run. I didn't do all the things I wanted to do, but I wanted to be a parent, and I wanted to be a good parent. And so I did that instead. It's the New York Times. We can blame everything on the New York Times. In August of last year, one of the reporters contacted me, Jacob, and he asked me, he said, hey, have you been to a show since you retired? I'm like, nah, I haven't even watched an episode of the product. And I go to Manhattan a lot. The software company that my coaching business that I own is on. We use their platform. They're based out of Midtown Manhattan, so I fly out there all the time. And he goes, "I know you're here in Manhattan a lot. SmackDown is going to be at the Garden. I'd love to capture a reaction walking back into the arena." He's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it. That'd be fun." So he got us floor seats, and the second I walked onto the floor, this spark of nostalgia just took over me. Doors had just opened. The fans were just flooding in on the upper decks. And I used to sit or stand or whatever it was by the curtain as doors would open when I was on the roster, because it was just such an incredible feeling to kind of just sense the energy coming in from the crowd. I would just peek through the curtain, just watch the seats fill slowly. And then I'm like, all right, let's go make some magic happen. So it was like I was reliving that moment. And then to see guys like the Usos, come out and perform that night. And like Drew McIntyre and I used to travel together all the time. We were like buds. So, and same with like Usos. Hawkins and I had so many matches with the Usos. It was insane. And like, just to see my friends that, we were all like mid lower card when I left, to see them headlining the show was just, I was so happy for them. And I think it just ignited a flame in me that I thought had died. And then when I walked out of there, I was just like, damn it, it's in my blood. Like, let me see where this goes. So I threw some teasers out there on social media, just kind of like, let's see what the fans say. Let's see what the followers say. And they jumped on it. Like, they ate it up. They were like, oh my God, I would die to see this. Like, okay, let's dip a toe in and see what happens. And here I am.
And here's the picture
That's
of
it.
Madison Square Garden.
That's it.
Now, I really don't know what a transition is. Is it just a mental transition? Is there a physical part? Does it even matter? And I'm sincerely curious because I'm
Yeah,
unaware of like what is involved in this.
a
You
lot.
appear to have a chest now. Is that an operation or is that
Yeah, it's a combination of hormones and an operation. I've had several surgeries for gender. They would call them gender confirming surgeries, is what they're technically called, but they're surgeries to help the transition. So, yeah, I started taking hormones in October of 2020, and so that's kind of step one. When you decide that, okay, I'm going to go this route, usually you start taking hormones, and the estrogen. And they have an anti-androgen that you take as well. So it suppresses your natural testosterone, and then the estrogen starts to rise. And so you get physical changes with that. So your skin starts to soften. Some of the fat deposits start to shift, like, more butt and thighs areas. But emotionally, it's so much more than I ever anticipated or expected. I'm so much more in touch with like my inner self and my emotions, and where as a lot of guys, I think the standard for most men is like, guys don't cry. Men don't cry. Like, you don't let your feelings out. You shove them down inside and you man up. With estrogen, you just can't do that. Those feelings come to the surface, and I would find myself just crying at the drop of a hat. It was such a strange and very unique part of my life, and early in the transition. But eventually the hormones kind of balance out, and you figure out over several years where that sweet spot is, and you learn to process these emotions differently. But I really believe it changes the way the brain processes every scenario and event that you're in. But as far as surgeries, yeah, I had lost a ton of hair from my dreadlocks from steroids. So I had a hair transplant in December of 2020. That was my first surgery. So they grafted like 3,200 grafts from the back of my head to the front of my head. So that was like step one. And then step two was breast augmentation. So I got implants, and then that didn't go well because I lost so much muscle so fast. I'm so extreme with the things that I do. I did so much cardio. I changed my nutrition. I stopped lifting weights. And I lost all this muscle. So the implants dropped too far. So I had to go back in for like a second one. So that was, I think that was like November 21. I did the second breast augmentation. And then the next year in May, I did my facial surgery. So that's a crazy one. They like fully reconstruct your face from top to bottom. And then they shaved off my trachea so that I don't have an Adam's apple. I did a face lift and a second nose job that December. And then last year in May, I had a vocal surgery. But unfortunately, it didn't come out the way I wanted to. My voice changed a little bit. But prior to that surgery, I started experiencing what's called vocal cord dysfunction. So the specialists I've seen, they don't know why it happens. It's something kind of unique. Kind of takes a perfect storm of events, but basically my vocal cords don't work the way they're supposed to. And it was pre-surgery. So I kind of have this like lower, deeper voice still, even though the surgery should have fixed it. So that's kind of where I'm at. But there's still more surgeries to be done. And I'm kind of the point where, 5 and in a couple of years is a lot on the body. So I'm kind of just like taking a little breather right now.
Yeah, and I imagine that's got to affect the pocketbook a little bit
Oh
too, depending on
yeah,
what your hookups are. Now,
I'm
the
I'm in
one
it
thing.
over six figures.
Oh, really? Well, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised at that.
Yeah, it's not it's all cosmetic surgery for the most part, and you know, insurance. Some insurances cover it, but it's like you get what you pay for. You know, like cosmetic surgery is not like it's an art, and if you got an artist that is just stepping into the game to do billing, like you're gonna get what you pay for. So yeah, I'm in it well over six figures.
Now, one thing where I think you will get more quote unquote hate from people is they've seen you before as a man where, for instance, Nyla Rose and Giselle Shaw, they were never known in wrestling as
Right.
anything but. So I can already tell like you're gonna have to battle through more than that.
Yeah.
I guess you're prepared for that
Oh
backlash, and I mean it's not going to be everybody, but obviously,
no.
particularly at the start, it might be
Right.
difficult.
Yeah, so like you know, Nyla and Giselle both are much tinier than I am even now. At my smallest, when I had before I had gotten back into wrestling, I was like just barely above 190 pounds. I was pretty tiny compared to the giant 280-pound muscly monster I used to be. But the second I stepped back into the ring and activated those muscles, like I mean, I wore this shirt kind of on purpose so you could see that you know I'm not a tiny female by any means. I'm trans woman. I have tons of muscle mass left from being that ginormous man that I used to be, and the world saw that person, and that is like you said, Hannibal. It's a huge contrast compared to seeing Nyla and Giselle, who are very you know Nyla's got a little bit of size on her, but they're both much smaller than me, and they both look very feminine compared to like my masculine muscles that I have. So there's absolutely going to be pushback from people, and I expect that. You know, I would never compete in a true competitive sport. I my advantage over natural females, like biological females, whatever you want to say, it's stupid. Like it's just not even a question, which is why wrestling is so special because we know it's sports entertainment. It's an athletic dance between two people. Whether you're two guys, two girls, a guy and a girl, like there have been intergender matches for decades. You know, China, I mean, even before China, like it was going on. It happens all the time on the indies. And like we saw Rhea Ripley, you know, a couple years ago, take on Gallows and slam him on the outside of the mat. It's like these things have been going on for a long time. But because I'm personally under a microscope with the public, they're going to view it differently. And I'm okay with that. I can't make everyone happy. But what I can tell you is that they're going to be watching because they want to see what happens. So we're bringing an audience in, and it's an amazing opportunity to show the people that either don't understand or vehemently against me competing. I say competing, but having matches, having sports entertainment matches with the female roster to show them what an incredible show we can put on, how safe it can actually be. The last thing I want is for him to get hurt in one of my matches. And if you were to go ask Jessica Roden about our match, I'm sure she'd speak very highly of it. We, you know, big hugs afterwards, like just I love you, girl. I love you too. Thank you so much. That's how it's supposed to be. Like it was really cool to hear her when we came back from this almost 20-minute match. She goes, God, can other people just be as professional as you? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, everything was solid. Like we laid our stuff in, but I'm not hurt. I'm like, I'm perfect. Like I get hurt more in these other matches. Like she's like, I can go home and feel great. She's like, you like it was so professional. Thank you. I'm like, okay, cool. So that's the kind of awareness I'm hoping to bring. And I know no matter where I end up, no matter what roster it's on, if I am in the ring with females, one, they're going to be very safe with me. And two, we are going to bring a show like nobody has ever seen before. And it's going to entertain millions of people.
And one thing that I get the feeling from you, like we saw with the Giselle Shaw thing, like with Steiner, where she kind of like took it and had the referee do something, and then they ended up getting banned. You seem like the type. And being a Rick Bassman person too, I can imagine you would just actually get into it with
with the
somebody.
guys.
Yeah, would
Oh,
I be right if like somebody
oh,
like
totally.
said something?
Oh, totally. I mean, the thing about me is that I do train with both men and women. But like when I'm at Dustin Rhodes, I train at Dustin Rhodes School a lot here in Austin, Texas. I also train at AAPW. Most of the time in training, I'm working with guys. I'm working with guys smaller than me, bigger than me, and it's like, you know, I'm the one showing a lot of those guys like, hey, you need to lay your stuff in here, and this is how you look aggressive. So, um, it's yeah, I wouldn't have any problem like jumping in the ring with a guy either. I think right now, I think the draw would be to be again in the ring with females, but if I happen to be in the ring with Rhea and Dominic step in there, I wouldn't be afraid to step up and play with Dirty Dom.
Yeah, it sounds like there's already been a few comments that people want to already see you against Nyla because
Oh yeah,
she kind of is bigger than all the AEW um, talent
sure.
in her division. So to have you come in there, that would be the natural feud in a place like AEW.
Oh yeah, I could see that happening as well. Like, and Nyla and I talk quite a bit. She's an amazing human. I We had kind of been chatting back and forth on social media for the last probably year or so, and then I got to meet her at AEW when I was backstage there, and she's just a phenomenal human being. And I've watched her work. She does great stuff in the ring. So yeah, that'd be a banger of a match. That'd be a hell of a match, her and I. And I think that would be one of the first. I mean, that would pretty much be the first. I think male to female transgender versus male to female transgender on like a roster that size ever. If I don't quote me, but I don't think anybody's done that yet. I don't think Giselle and Nyla have wrestled before.
To my knowledge, no, definitely not on that roster.
Yeah,
100% not on that roster.
it'll be a
It
first.
seems like they only have had Nyla as the only transgender in AEW, from
Right.
my knowledge of it.
Yeah.
She'll probably be there for the entire run of the company since she was there from the beginning, I imagine.
Yeah. She was there from the get go. So and she's just she's tearing it down every time she goes in there. She's amazing. She's tough too. God, that girl can take some bumps.
And I notice after a while, people stopped caring. I mean, there's obviously still some issues here and there, but when it was first announced that she was going to be on the roster before the company started,
Yeah.
that was one of the big things about it. Got AEW a lot of publicity actually that
Yeah.
that she was going to appear, and then after a few months, it's just like no one
Yeah.
even thinks about it anymore.
Well, and kind of in that same light, you remember we're entertainment, and so eyes equal ratings, and viewers get sucked in. It's like, oh, I wouldn't watch. I get all these comments, and again, it's not the majority, but I see everything. I see every comment, every positive one, every negative one. I'm in charge of all my social media. I do everything. I'm the one answering every comment, and I see the negative ones. And don't get me wrong, I think the average person could go to bed crying after seeing all those. But to me, I just look at it as an opportunity to educate or to take that and fuel the fire for what I'm doing. But even if they are not on board with what I'm doing, and you take these people that throw all these negative comments and the shade around, they're going to be watching. It's like they want to know what happens. They're like, I wouldn't watch it if you get signed to either blah 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 company. I quit watching, and I go, no, you wouldn't. You would tune in the first chance you get to see what happens, so you can go talk a bunch of crap about it on the internet, which is perfect. Like, you go talk about it. That's fine. That equals ratings. Is what that equals. So bring it.
And they're following you. I get so many comments every day myself. Oh, you're boring. You suck. Blah 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 blah. It's like, why are you watching my videos? So
Yeah.
at least they're following, and their comments actually boost the videos.
That's I'll post stories on TikTok from time to time, and if you're not super TikTok savvy, half the time you don't even realize it's a story. So you have to be following that person to get their stories versus just seeing what's in their feed. And I'll see some haters in there and they'll just throw some shade and I'll just always comment. I'm like, but you're following me. It's just like, yeah, sorry, buddy. You can just turn around and walk out anytime. But they don't.
I know that Giselle, because she's in TNA, it's not as much of a major company, is a little bit more like sexual and stuff with some things that she puts out and so forth.
Sure.
Where Nyla, I don't, to my knowledge, I don't think she
Nah,
is.
nah.
Do you think it's advantageous to
She's
be
more of
more
a
in the
fighter.
middle and something like? Yeah. Where do you think you're going to be in that range?
um, well, Mother is a very unique character. She's a very unique persona in that she believes everything she does is right and for the greater good. And there is a sensual side to her, and I purposely work that in. Um, it's not a flaunty sexual side. It's not a flaunty like sensual side. It's built into kind of her evilness and her sultriness. And I did that on purpose because I knew it was going to fry some fuses in people's brains. I knew they were just going to blow a fuse and go, I I shouldn't be wanting to watch this, but I want a little bit more of that. And I know it was going to drive them nuts. And I've actually had that conversation with several people, and they go, it's perfect. Like most men that watch are, straight men. When those kind of moments come up, they're gonna have this like internal, battle inside their mind, going like, "What's happening? I shouldn't feel this way." And like, "Oh, I hate you," and then they're gonna boo a little more. I'm like, "It's perfect." Then the other half of the people are just gonna they're gonna roll with it, and they're gonna love it. So there are some small sensual sides to Mother, and when we do post the footage of the match and the promo, they are very clear. You will see them there. It's in the promo segment. You will absolutely see it when I talk and the way I am, and you'll see it again at the end of the match after the finish. You'll see a little bit there, and be careful. You might fry a fuse.
Now, I've seen some images of this promo you did, and there's the two masked characters behind you. Who are
Yeah.
they?
So those are they're shoot they are they're Will Mo Kelly from AAPW, and the other is Parviz. He's half of a tag team with this guy Bill, and he's been on AEW a couple times. They've done a couple of one-offs. They're phenomenal. He's been in the business for a long time, and so they're my heaters. They're my hounds. My children, so to speak. So they're the first of my children, and they protect Mother. They're fierce. They are willingly on those chains. So the way I like to think about it is, if you got two hellhounds coming out in front, they're the warriors that come out to protect me. And the second I unleash them, the second I take those chains off of them, they're going to destroy whatever's in our path. And we purposely put masks on them so that you don't know who they are, and it creates kind of this very similar look, so that we don't draw too much attention away from Mother, but we see these two giant looming characters, this presence of this giant people, and they're both wearing the same masks and the same outfits, and it's like, okay, there's an army and a family being built here. We see what's going on.
As far as who you look up to as maybe a female wrestler from
Yeah.
the past, do you have anyone in particular?
How far back are we talking?
Well, let's see. You're what, in your early 40s now, so maybe the 80s and 90s. Let's think.
You're on my good side. I'm 45. I mean, I think when you look at my stature and my persona and the way I work in the ring, I mean, I think the person that's going to come to most people's mind is going to be China. She broke boundaries. She worked both guys and females in the ring. She held both titles at one point. And she didn't care about what people thought. She was a very large female with lots of muscle, and she embraced it. And so I'm kind of picking that torch up. And I didn't want this muscle to come back when I started. It did. I haven't touched a weight in 4 years. It just literally muscle memory. If you look at my Sportsnet interview that was on my X profile, I just unpinned it. But if you look up Sportsnet and you look up my name, I did an interview in December and I was at like 192 pounds. Like couldn't really tell I had any muscle on me anymore. I had some. I looked like a fit female, but it came back. Like muscle memory is very real. And so I've had to embrace it. And it's become part of who Mother is. And I just keep referencing China quite a bit and going, thanks, girl. You know, you paved that way. And I think I'm going to just pick up the torch and embrace the mindset that you had.
And you've already mentioned Rhea Ripley, who I would say is probably the top most popular female in wrestling right now. Is
Sure.
that someone you'd want to feud with in WWE, obviously?
Absolutely. You know, Rhea, I met Rhea at WrestleMania, and she was so sweet and so kind. She's just an amazing soul. In the ring, she's a killer. She's a beast. And if we could think for a moment, just picture in your mind, you know, the clip that you showed tonight, and we had mommy versus mother. God, what a statement that would be. You thought we tore the house down in a small little place in Irvine. Yeah. Wait till we get in front of a couple million people on TV and, you know, however many tens of thousands will be in attendance for that one. I would seize that opportunity in a heartbeat.
And as far as AEW, is there anyone in particular you'd like to be in the ring with?
Oh my God. I mean, where do I start? Like, it's all my old friends. Just to have a match with anybody there would be great. That was one of my friends from the roster. But you know, to be honest, I'd love to have a match with Dragon before he's done. I know he's thinking about retiring pretty soon. I think I heard it through the grapevine. But Danielson, we were on the roster together. He was always super cool. Before he goes, God, I'd love to have a match with him. But on the female side, I love to get there with Taya or even Saraya. God, Saraya has been one of my biggest supporters too. Both Taya and Saraya both supported me since day one. Either one of them be amazing in the ring. But Rhea, God, she goes out of her way to open doors for people and to do things that the average person wouldn't spend time doing to help people. And I love her deeply for that. And I think to see us face off in the ring, just me versus Rhea, two good friends knocking it out in the ring, I think the chemistry would be amazing.
Now, this is a question. The guy says a serious question, and you bring it up yourself with Danielson. Why not go for a men's title looking like that? Is that something you're open to? Because we've seen
Yeah.
Tessa Blanchard win a men's title, but the reason I didn't like that was because it was unrealistic. With
Yeah.
you could actually
Oh yeah.
probably beat a lot of men, even without working.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not opposed to that one bit. You know, it's whatever direction that, you know, let's say I do sign with either company. Let's say that happens. And when I sit down with the creative department, we plan this out. Whatever direction that seems the best for engaging the fans and the best for, how can I say this? I guess fan reception of me being who I am and what I am. I have no problem taking a men's title, and I have no problem getting in there and going toe to toe with any of those guys. Like I said, I train with very big guys, very strong guys all the time. I'm not afraid to lay my shit in. I'm not afraid to hit and punch and kick like a guy. I mean, as much as my body mechanics are much more female now, when I step into that ring, I still like the killer instinct comes out, and the body mechanics when I'm throwing a punch or a kick, still a little bit of Rex in there. And so, yeah, you tell me who you want me to face off with. Whoever's listening and watching, go ahead and throw some names out there, and I'll tell you what kind of match that would be. Because no matter what they say, it's going to be a good match.
It would be interesting to see. To be honestly, I'd be curious to see that something like that myself.
Yeah.
As far
Wouldn't that
as
be? Put me in the ring with Drew. God, Drew and
yeah,
I had some fun matches in FCW. We had some great matches in FCW, and like I said, we traveled together when I was.
he does wear a skirt, doesn't he?
I know. I already got a promo ready for I got a promo for every person on every single roster, just right here, ready to go. And I'm like, that'd be my first go-to.
So as far as you mentioned, like some of the old style of Tyler Rex might come out, how is the new style of Gabbi Tuft different from the old Tyler Rex
Yeah.
style?
Yeah. I tried to kill Rex. I really wanted people to look at it. And thinking about what I just said about like when I punched and kicked, there's a little bit of Rex in there. I did my very best to ensure when you look at Mother, you don't see Rex. There's some homage to him. I used to have I had real dreadlocks down to my butt. And so I had Kendra. She does a lot of the hair makeup for a lot of the girls. I had her make an install for me. So we have basically like a dreadlock wig that I put on over my real hair to pay homage to that. And it just kind of fits the character really well. But I spent the last 6 months developing my style purposely to be different from Rex, so that when you saw Mother, you didn't think Rex. You thought, holy crap, this is something new that I haven't seen before. So I purposely don't move like I used to. I brought to the ring every time I went to practice. I picked 2 or 3 things that I'd never done before, that I didn't know how to do, and that I wanted to try. And I added those things to my arsenal that were just completely night and day from who I used to be. So a lot of the things that you're going to see are things that I either couldn't do or didn't do before. And it's just bringing a whole new twist to my abilities.
Someone's asking a business question. Who is your agent and how many other people does your agent manage? I think you have a whole management team, I believe.
I do. Yeah, I've got an entire PR team that puts stories out there for me and connects with all of the major publications and the TV stations. And as far as my agent, if we're talking, if we're working with WWE or AEW, it's Rick Bassman. He's my right hand guy when
Well,
it
I
comes to
mean,
that stuff.
he was John Cena's, Sting's Ultimate Warriors.
Yeah.
Couldn't
Yeah.
ask for a better one than that, and I
No,
think he's
I
the
mean,
one
like
that
he
got you
found
signed, right?
me. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, Rick and I have been friends since God 2000, 2004, 5. Like we go back decades. So I wouldn't want anybody else swinging that bat for me.
Was he at your match the other night?
Oh, he sure
Now
was.
that he's
Oh
back.
God,
Okay.
you want to? Let's take a moment and we'll talk about who actually came to the match to support, which was absolutely mind blowing. So Rick was there. Chavo and his wife Sherry were there. Jelly Roll's wife Bunny DeFord came to support with Mimi and Haley. Mickey Fitzpatrick, he was at WWE. He was a glam artist for the Divas there. Now he's over at AEW. He did all my glam and makeup. He brought Mother to life. Kendra Simmons did my hair. She helped create that character. We had Eden the doll there, as well as her fiance Christian. Kaylee Swenson, Viking Barbie, was in the audience as well. As long as the list just goes on. Oh, hey, Heidi Lavon. God, how did I forget Heidi and James? Heidi and James were there as well too. So Heidi's a good friend of mine. It's funny, like a lot of the influencers on TikTok, we all kind of got to know each other. And we all kind of started being on each other's podcasts. And then we just built this friendship around that. And we've just people that you tend to vibe with. So we had this massive community of support that just they went out of their way to come watch the match and support, which was mind-blowing to me, like literally mind-blowing to me.
Well, this is a weird question, but I'll just ask it anyways because it's unique. What day of the year was this character created?
What day of the year? Like on the 13th, honey. Of course
There
on
you
the
go.
13th.
Well, someone wants to know here any memories of Bray Wyatt, who you would have been around him in your
Yeah.
previous.
Yeah, Wyndham and I were buddies. I didn't talk to him much after I retired. It's Hannibal, you know how it is. Like once you get off the roster, everybody's so busy, you get the random text here and there. We know how it is. Um, but I knew Wyndham as like a kid, like him and Taylor. Bo, his real name's Taylor. They were in FCW with with me and everybody else. And they were just kids. I was much older. I was, God, 29, 30, and they were just in the early 20s. But I will tell you a funny story. So, in FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, we had 3 rings in the back, and then we had the TV ring in the TV arena. And along this long wall were all the chairs that you could sit and get dressed at. And we had this new crop of guys come in that had just got signed. They would do that from time to time. They'd sign a bunch of new guys, and we get like a dozen new guys come in. And one morning we all walk in, and there's all these newbies just sitting in our chairs. And we're like, okay, cool guys. So me and Fandango and Trent and Bray and Taylor, we just grab a couple of chairs and we go into the guy's bathroom. We just lay them out there, and it became our spot. There's 2 urinals and there's 2 toilets, and all of us would just go in there in the mornings and get dressed while guys are like in there doing their business. Then lunchtime, we take our snacks in there and stuff. We would literally just eat in the chairs in the bathroom while guys are like taking shits. It was like that was our place. And we just to laugh. Like Bray would always have a dip in his mouth, and we just always laugh when somebody wanted to like take a shit as we're trying to eat our food. And then
That's got to be awkward for the person in the stall too.
I mean, it's just a bunch of dudes. Like nobody cared. Like, you know how guys are. Like we'd be talking to them the whole time, and just we all have conversations in there. It was just such locker room crap. It's just so funny. But Bray was so interesting because on Wednesdays it was promo day, and Dusty Rhodes was the guy that was helping us with all our promos. He was in charge of it. And God, I miss Dusty. He was such a cool guy. And we would have to come prepared. He was like, you got 1 minute in the ring. Everybody sat around and watched, and Dusty would count you down with time. And if you went over, under, like Dusty just ate you for lunch. And when Bray got up there, his promos were so different, and they were long. I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 minutes long. And sometimes he'd have like somebody working with him. At one point, I think it was Vic that was in there with him. And they did this like detective kind of thing. And I think at that point, we kind of saw the beginning of like Bray Wyatt. Because back then it was Husky. It was Husky Harris. And I think we saw sparks and just little tiny insights on who Bray was. And we couldn't understand why Dusty would like let him run over on promos. Like, okay, I guess something's going on here. And he would just go on and on and on. But we all kind of were like, this is kind of cool. This is different. It doesn't really have a lot to do with wrestling, but we're all kind of sucked into the story. And so in our own way, we kind of saw like the spark and like that like primordial Bray kind of coming out of him. It was really cool. Nice.
If they were to, I always hear that about him.
Yeah.
If they were to sign you to like WWE and say, okay, we want you as part of this new Wyatt group and not do the mother character, would you be open to something like that?
You said to not do the mother character?
Yeah. Or are you like just determined to do the mother character? Because WWE sometimes likes to do their own thing and have their own ideas. So like, what if they were to say, okay, you're going to be in Uncle Howdy's new group or something? Would you say yes, or is like this character?
Oh, well, if they wanted me in the Wyatt 6 and they said, look, we got to abandon mother and do this, I'd be like, okay, let's go. If there was an opportunity to be in the Wyatt 6, I'd be like, yeah, tell me where I'm at, and let me figure out who that character is, and I will bring it. But as it is, if mother, like to abandon mother, it would be to abandon a legacy. There is so much in her, and there is so much potential for that character. It would be a shame to just drop it. I would love to have the opportunity to say, hey, like the idea, can we work her in? And then go from there. That's what I would like to see. And if not, okay, let's go. That'd be an honor either way.
Now, I know you probably want to work for them, so you're going to be diplomatic about this, but like, what do you think about now, since AEW's competition, the minimum main roster pay is now $350,000 in WWE? Is that a big difference from what it was, and you don't have to say it, when you made the main roster? Was it near 350, or is this just money that's
See, I didn't even know about
unbelievable?
that. That's the minimum right now in WWE?
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
NXT is different, but
I
with a main
assumed it was
roster.
slightly different, yeah. But no, we did not get paid that much when I was on the roster for a lower mid card. That was not the minimum. No.
Yeah, because I know like a couple years ago it was 250, and then it just recently came out a few weeks ago. Triple H
Somebody
said
leaked it.
350. Yeah, and I'm positive that's because of the competition. But
Yeah,
good time
that
to come
makes a lot
back.
of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, with all the AEW competition coming. Yeah, I mean, I would say for what the demand is for travel, I know it's still pretty similar. You mentioned earlier it's not what it used to be, but I think the travel is still pretty intense. You know, I know they still do house shows in WWE,
Yeah,
and I know if you're doing
I think there's
loops,
only about 2 a week though, and sometimes only 1 a week. So there's not like
really.
3-day house shows a week now. It's
Oh
better
my
for house
god.
shows.
Oh
And
wow.
now
Well,
they've
that
recently said no more smaller towns unless they prepay, unless like they pay a site
oh.
fee to come there.
So and here's me in my mind. I'm like, I'm getting ramped up for 4 or 5 days a week in my head. I'm like, here we go.
No, it's
Ready.
not
Let's
like
do it.
that. New
I'm
owners, as this
obscene.
person says.
Has there been any has been any conversation between me and any owners? I would prefer to keep everything about my conversations with anybody under wraps for now. I don't want to spoil anything that's coming up. There's something to be said for an element of surprise, and whether or not there have or have not been. If I say either way, it kind of spoils things. So we're going to keep that under wraps for now.
But yeah, the thing about the new owners is they're not as much into the house shows, so it's
Got
a
it.
little
Oh, we're
bit
talking
better.
about TKO and Endeavor. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, if you think about, if we are cutting down on house shows and it's not, 4 or 5 days a week, that reduces the travel schedule immensely. And if that is really the minimum pay that is, I would say par for the course. Even on that many travel days of being 2 a week plus TVs, that's a lot on the body. That's a lot of demand. You are out there, every single night. You're traveling and you're entertaining a crowd, and you're going to the extreme every night. That's pretty good. I think that's fantastic. I love the fact that they've raised that. So that's really good to hear.
Someone wants to know your best and worst moments in professional wrestling.
Worst moment. God, let me think here. Because I've had some bad moments. I, I think some of my worst moments were down in FCW, but like on the, I remember one time, like in FCW, we would go do these local shows. And the idea was to get us experience in front of a crowd, which is absolutely necessary, especially someone like me that had never worked the indies. We would travel. It was based in Tampa, so we do shows near Tampa. It was usually within like 3 to 5 hour driving, and we would do several a week. And I remember we drove, it must have been 3 or 4 hours to the show. And it was like, it felt like it was in a barn. It wasn't, but it felt like it. It was just like a dirt road leading up, dirt parking lot. We had 4 people in the audience for the whole show. And we ran like it was, but I will tell you, it was at that moment, whether there are 4 people in the audience or 4,000, you work the same. And that's what we treat it like. Like there's 4 people. Okay, we're going to do this. So I think that was one of the lower moments in my career, was performing in front of 4 people. But the higher moments were definitely on the roster. It was Raw 1000 was so cool. It was a small moment, but I remember watching Undertaker as a kid. And this goes to show you like how long Taker had been in the business. When he would do his entrance and roll his eyes back in his head, I would go cower behind my dad, and I was like, I don't know if I can watch this. This is really scary. I was under 10 years old at the time. So Raw 1000 comes around. And this is when Taker and Kane are reuniting as the Brothers of Destruction. And Kane and Tate come to us. They come to me, Hawkins, Drew, Jinder, and Unico. And they go, hey, we want to do this thing tonight. And we don't trust a lot of people, but we trust you guys. Can you help us? And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, this is cool. So they pulled us into like TVL and kind of told us the plan. And I'm like, sure, let's do this. So They did their whole thing. They had their face off in the middle of the ring, and then we caused some commotion. I think Jinder was leading the pack at the time, and we all slid in. It turned into this big brawl. And I had been in the ring with Kane several times. We'd done a bunch of house shows together, a bunch of battle royals, and Kane and I were kind of buddies. But to be in the ring with Undertaker, on top of that, like both these guys at once, was just phenomenal. And it wasn't a big moment. Like I slid in there and he was telling me first, I'll look for you. We'll find you. We'll knock you out. I'm like, okay, cool. I took an uppercut from Kane. I fed to the corner. And I looked up and there's Take looking me dead in the eye. And he's kind of like giving me the Iggy to like feed. I'm like, okay, here I come. I just full on charged him, stuck my jaw out and just tagging me in the jaw. I'm like, sweet. I'm just going to check that mark off my bucket list. So I get to say I was in the ring with Taker. I think that was one of the high points for sure.
That's pretty cool. And I used to be friends with Jinder Mahal back in Calgary. Do you have any stories about him? He unfortunately was just released
Just got
after.
released.
You got to work with
Yeah.
The Rock though before, so good for him
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. No stories that you guys I think are gonna laugh at or anything like that, or any like crazy stories. Jinder was just always really cool. Him and I were buds. We kept in contact over the years. Paladin says AEW confirmed for Jinder. Ooh, cool. Yeah. I saw him
I
in
think
Mania.
he's saying it for
And
you. I think he's saying it for you.
for me.
Yeah.
Sorry. No,
No,
I'm not gonna
Tony
give
Khan and Jinder had some back and forth on Twitter, so I don't
did
know
they?
if they're going to be able to fix that or not.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well, you never know
I
what's a
heard
work
he's
when it's a
wrestling
feud
for
anymore.
AAA though, so he might be in Mexico for a bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, got it. But yeah, I saw Jinder at Mania, and he was just cool. He's like, "Oh my god, give me a hug, girl!" And like came and gave him a big hug, and it was like we never stopped talking. So he's a good guy. Like he's a good guy. He's a great worker. Wishing the best for him too. And then as far as me confirmed for AEW, I'm not going to give confirmation on anything. I was kind of telling that earlier. I don't want to spoil the element of surprise, whether it's WWE, AEW, or anything else. There is an incredible element of surprise with not knowing. And I know that people watching like, damn it, just tell us. That's half the point. Is I want to bring you to that point of excitement, and then just smack it to you like right in the face. Like, here it is. This is what you've been waiting for, and you hate me for it now, but you'll love me for it when it happens.
Yeah, and I will just say for Jinder, he was WWE champion and he made a fortune and had a long run, so he's
Oh yeah,
accomplished all he needs to accomplish. You have
yeah,
not though. You still have some left in you and you
yep,
still have something to accomplish. What would be your goals for wrestling? Obviously to make it to a company, but do you
yeah.
have anything specific, any title you want to win or anything like that?
I don't want to say that I want to hold a women's world title right now because I don't want to. I don't want to light the fires. To hold a title in WWE would be amazing, or a title in AEW would be amazing. To hold one of the world titles in either organization, that's the goal. And to headline a Mania, that's the goal. I think if I do both of those, I can rest easy, and I can call it a day.
Those are some pretty ambitious goals. You mentioned that you were training with Natty and TJ, who
Yeah,
who tune people up that are already wrestlers for
yeah,
WWE or even other companies.
yep,
Then Dustin, who I guess has his own school in Austin now. Of course, he works with
yep,
AEW and he's
yep,
brothers with Cody. What
yep.
happened with the Nightmare Factory and Dustin, and who runs the Nightmare Factory now? Is it just Cody? Why did he leave the Nightmare Factory?
I don't actually know any of the history on that. All I know is that Cody has the Nightmare Factory and Dustin has Rhodes Wrestling Academy. I think it's because they live in separate areas. So I think Nightmare Factory is up in Dallas area, if I'm not mistaken. I could be totally
I
wrong.
think
Somebody
it's
correct me if I'm wrong.
McDonough, Georgia, outside of
Oh, okay.
Atlanta.
There
Yeah.
you go. So, and Dustin lives here in the Austin area, so it would make sense for him to have his own school here. I don't think he left that purposely. I think it's just because his life is out here, is really what it boils down to. So,
And he's got that nice AEW money now too. He probably doesn't need to train somewhere else. It's probably better to train where he's more comfortable.
well, what I can tell you is that his facility is amazing. I mean, he's got two full-size rings in there. He's got a great crew. He's got phenomenal coaches. And then, don't want to, I'm there all the time.
Can you tell us any stories about Dustin? I know he's turned his life around greatly from a dark period, and he's doing better than ever.
Yeah, Goldie was so cool to me when I was on the roster. He just was always he's funny. Like, he's very funny. He kind of comes across like he hates everybody, but it's just kind of like he's just a big sarcastic guy. Like, he's a big teddy bear. One of the reasons that I was able to use my modified burning hammer in the first place is because of Dustin. I'd been using it in dark matches and stuff, and Trent Beretta and I created it in FCW. So I was looking for a finish. And Trent goes, hey, why don't you use the burning hammer? I'm like, we're talking about Kenta's? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, there's no way. Like, it's too dangerous. They'll never let me use it. And then Trent goes, well, why don't you just like turn it into a sit out DDT? And I'm like, okay, let's try it. So we got a crash pad. We did like 10 or 12 times. So we got it. I'm like, this is cool. Nobody's ever done this. So I started using it. And when they decided to bring me on for the pay-per-view, when we were talking earlier, like when I squashed Caval to go to bragging rights, that day of the rehearsal, everybody's around the ring, and here I am doing rehearsals with everybody for the first time. It was just nuts. Arn's on headset, and he goes, hey Tyler, Vince wants to know if you got a finisher. I go, yeah, it's modified burning hammer. And he goes, what the fuck's that? Oh, I don't know if I can cuss, sorry. So he's like, what the F is that? And Goldie goes, hey, I'll take it, tell me how to take it. I'm like, okay, it's this thing. He goes, you gonna kill me? I'm like, not at all, dude. It's super easy. He's like, okay, I trust you. And I did it in front of everybody. Like, we had half the roster out there for rehearsals for that day for whatever reason. So I hit it. Everybody goes, oh my God, are you okay, Dustin? He's like, I'm fine. It was easy. And then Arn's on headset. He's like, all right, Vince loves it. Do it. I'm like, cool. Thanks, Goldie. So he's one of the reasons that I got to use that really cool finisher. But he's also the reason that I was able to get back in and train. So when I decided to get back into the ring, I hadn't talked to Dustin in years. And I go through my phone and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a chance. I was like, hey, old friend, how are you? He's like, hey, what's up? Nice to hear from you. I'm like, we bantered a little bit. I said, hey, look, I'm kind of thinking about getting back into the biz. Would you mind if I just came checked out your school? He's like, yeah, come on down. We got our TV taping, or he does a showcase with his camps, and they were taping their YouTube show. He's like, come on down. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got to see everybody. I got to see Terrell, his wife, and it was cool. He just gave me a big old hug, and he was like, hey, girl, good to see you. And they took a break for whatever reason. I think they were doing like a break in between matches. And we had about 10 minutes. And I go, hey, can I put a toe in the ring? He's like, come on, kid, let's go. And we walk up the steps, and he sat on the ropes. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I go, oh yeah, that's right. The guys sit on the ropes so the girls can get in. I'm like, I was so not used to that. I'm like, thanks, man. And so we slid in and we chatted. And I think we talked for all 10 minutes in the ring. And he's like, you want to get back into this? I'm like, I do. He's like, come on, let's go talk. I'm like, perfect. So he's really the person that opened the door for me to have a place to train. So I owe him a lot.
The Ragu Overlord wants to know, is there any sort of spirituality as a philosophy? I'm guessing you can take that as you want.
As for me as a human, or as for mother? For me as a human.
As a human, I think.
As a human, yeah. So I'm not religious. I am a little spiritual now. I've really started to understand that I believe there is more to what we see than what we see. I'm sorry. Believe that there is more than what we see in front of our eyes. I'm more of a scientist by trade. I did civil engineering in college, got all my degrees and my stuff back here on the wall. But to know that they're at the basic level of like the building blocks of all things organic and inorganic, everything's energy and everything vibrates at certain vibrations and frequencies. We can only see certain frequencies of light. We can't see what cats see. We don't see ultraviolet. And there's all these cool things like superpositioning, where two particles can exist at the same time in two different positions in space and time. So it's just like there must be more out there, and I fully subscribe to that. And I'm a huge huge believer in, you know, what you put out there for energy is what you get back. So if you put out a lot of negative energy, you're going to get sucked into that. It's going to come back to you. If you put out a lot of positive energy, you're going to get positive energy back. And so that's kind of where my philosophy lies. I always try to look at the positive aspect, and I truly believe that if you want something bad enough, if the reasons are good enough, if the reasons are strong enough, if the emotion behind what you're doing is powerful enough, it'll happen. And not because, you know, of anything voodoo-y, but because the universe will hear that, and you'll attract those things that you need to attract to make it happen. I am where I am today because of that belief.
Yes, and my research is showing similar stuff into that domain. Somebody wants to know about. I recently interviewed Katie Lee Burchill, who you may or may not
Oh yeah,
know.
Katarina Waters. I just saw her
Yeah,
down. I was at Rikishi's school like 2 weeks ago. I just saw her there.
very nice girl, and she talked about on air she's pansexual.
Yep. Yeah.
She's which I didn't even know what that meant. But since then, I've watched the Miley Cyrus documentary, and I'm
Don't worry. I don't
not
even think I know.
unaware of that. Yeah,
I think I have
but
a
anyways, this
general.
person wants to know if you would ever allow her to manage you. But you mentioned earlier you have a whole gimmick.
I do have a whole gimmick. I don't think Katie. I don't think Katie can actually do anything right now. I think she's got some injuries, if I'm not mistaken. But God, I mean, she brings across some darkness when she's out there. So Mother is pretty dark. I wouldn't say no.
Yeah, Katie, she can't wrestle ever, or she doesn't want to wrestle again. But we actually, in our company up here in Canada, she is going to wrestle August the 31st.
No way.
So, or it's not wrestle, manage. Sorry, manage,
You get a manage?
manage.
Oh
Yeah,
my God,
manage.
that's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
She's
really cool to see her. One of my first opponents in ECW was Paul Burchill. And so she was valeting Paul at the time. And this is back when I was the surfer guy, you know. I didn't really know who I was as far as a character. And so Paul was super cool. I was still really green, and Katie was super cool. And it was just, she was always very nice. And we always stayed friends throughout the years. So yeah, she's amazing.
and another Rick Bassman friend as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Well, yeah,
yeah,
that was quite. Rick was there at Rikishi's school, kind of watching what I was doing, and he's like, "Hey, Katie's coming." I'm like, "Oh my God, no way!" So yeah, they still talk all the time. Katie Lee is a hottie. Yeah, she's pretty hot.
And I have to ask you about FCW. You told me you're eating in the bathroom all the time. Who was the smelliest of all the wrestlers? You must, if anyone would know, it would be you.
The smelliest of all the wrestlers. Oh God, I don't remember who it was. There was this one guy. What was his name? I cannot remember this guy's name, but he came onto the roster, or he came in development, and he was one of those things like he just didn't fit the mold. You know, it was like I think they found him. It was in a time when like Ty Bailey was looking for like body guys or just a certain persona or a certain look, not a persona. I'm sorry, a certain look. And he had kind of a look, but he was like more of a model and not a very athletic kind of person. And I just remember one day we were doing a man in the middle drill. And I for the life of me, cannot remember who this guy's name was. I guess I hit my head too many times. But we're doing man in the middle. So you get a guy in each post on the inside, and somebody's in the middle, and we just run a drill. And it's like these drills can go half an hour. You can be in the middle, like doing all sorts of crazy spots and stuff for half an hour. And it was his turn in the middle. It was me, Fandango, Cafu, and I don't remember who else was in there. And then this guy. And we locked up, and like when we're done, we're like, something smells like fish, dude. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, is that me? And then I look over after like Curtis, like Kurt Hussey is Fandango. I look at Curtis and I just kind of glanced over. He's like, he's doing like this thing because he had just locked up with him too and done a spot. And you just kind of see after every guy got done is they're just like, what the hell is that smell? And finally, like Kafu comes over to me and he's like, hey man, do you smell that? I'm like, yeah. He goes, dude, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna throw up. So Kafu goes over to him. He stops the drill after like 5 minutes. He's like, hey man, you need to go home right now. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you smell terrible. And he's like, really? All four of us are like, yeah, dude, we're not trying to be mean, but you smell like tuna. Like you need to go home. Kafu's like, you need to leave right now. You need to go home. You need to take soap and you need to wash everything twice. Like, and then double check before you come back. Like to this day, we have no idea what it was or what the smell was, but it was just like, it was like he'd gone to a fish market and just rolled around in the fish and then come to practice.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than that. I won't get into some of the stories that I've experienced of that, but it's horrible.
Yeah, it's so bad. So, I will tell you. So, estrogen does something to like your senses, especially your sense of smell. And like I'm well aware of like guys, like men have a scent. I didn't know that before. Like, and now here I am like rolling around with dudes in the ring. Like we get all sweaty and whatever. It's like that. The worst thing you go like, hey dude, go put some deodorant on. You fucking stink. But like as a transitioning woman now, like I would hug my guy friends and I'm like, you have a scent, and why do I like that? You know, so the sense of smell changes, and it for me it got really sensitive to just things I wouldn't smell before, like certain foods would make me kind of sick, and like if something was kind of going rancid, I smelled it a lot sooner than I would have as a guy. I can tell you now, I did not realize how many dudes, like when you start rolling around with guys in practice, I'm just like, you smell like butt. Like, no more sunset flips, dude. We are done. I'm like, this is not okay.
This question is asked all the time on this channel, so it's nothing offensive. Someone wants to know
Okay.
if you've ever seen Ric Flair do his helicopter trick.
I've never seen it personally, no, but I've heard about it.
Oh yeah, what have you heard?
I mean, talking about just
Yeah,
we're talking about the. Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's just like, come on. I mean,
I
there
gotta ask.
was one point I remember we were doing we're at FCW and we had this show where there was two guys' locker rooms. For some reason, it was just like separated, and they just had the doors open to both of them. And I remember I'm in the shower and I turn around and the doors open, and like I swear the fans could have walked by at any moment. I see Heath Slater across the way, like he's 100 feet away from me, and he's taking a shower. I turn around, I'm like, "Oh, what's up, dude?" And he just turns around and does the helicopter. Like I was all, bro, we can't be doing this. There could be people walking by any minute.
That's hilarious. I forgot about him, but he's still doing stuff here and there too, I
He
think.
is, yeah, he absolutely is.
Was Kyle Rasmussen or Rasmussen in FCW when you were there?
Was yeah, him and I think Aaron. I can't remember
Did you
Aaron's
hear
last name.
about
It's
what happened to
Aaron Reed.
him? He's sent in Kyle's in jail now for strangling a cab driver. Then his girlfriend runs out of the cab, and I don't mean to laugh at this, but the girlfriend gets killed.
Wait,
Did you hear
what?
about this?
No.
Oh my
Oh my.
God, you
Okay,
never
wait. Now
heard
I
about
gotta stop laughing. No, well, so this is the funny story. It's okay. God rest her soul. This is not funny. It's morbid, but we were trying to find the big guys, my hounds, for my gimmick, and I had a couple guys in mind here that were like 6'7", 6'9", but they couldn't make it, and so we're scrambling to find guys. And Rick goes, "God, Kyle would have been a good one, but I think he's in jail." And I looked, I'm like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Oh my God, he strangled somebody." I'm like, "Holy crap!" So I just learned about that like last week, but I didn't know his girlfriend died.
Yeah, his girlfriend was in the back seat of the car. I was just looking at the story when he snapped and started strangling this Uber driver, cab driver. Then she runs out in fear, and
And God,
and I don't. This is just crazy that a car hits her and kills his girlfriend.
no way. That's
Yeah,
Final Destination stuff.
yeah.
Oh
So
my,
he's in jail now for 153 days, I
manslaughter.
guess. Yeah,
Half a year, right? Yeah, that's what I saw. I couldn't believe that. That's crazy.
I'll put up the picture for the fans.
Let them
That
see.
I
I
knew
was
I
trying not
when
to
I had
laugh.
my physical for WWE in Pittsburgh. This guy was in the car with me because you know how they make you do physicals.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
could not believe that he did this. But
yeah.
yeah, like,
Kyle was the nicest guy too. He was always super cool. Like I can't picture him doing that. That's crazy. That guy must have pissed him off something fierce.
and he was into personal training like you too. Are you still doing personal training?
I am. That's actually my main business right now. So I do online personal fitness and nutrition. I'm a licensed sports nutritionist with the National Association of Sports Nutrition. I have 5 extra certifications with that same governing board of CPT, and we train 99% biological females. So it's been incredible. It's enterprise level. I've helped over 2,000 clients to success in 14 years. So I've got a team of coaches I train. I teach them all my science, all my nutrition, all of my neuroscience and psychology that I've learned over the years. And so I double certify them within my company. So at a minimum, they're triple certified. But yeah, it's what I'm doing now. Well, I say what I'm doing now, but wrestling has taken the front line. But yeah, by the way, if anybody's interested, shameless plug for CoachGabbi.com.
And as far as wrestling, obviously you're part of United Wrestling Network now that has syndicated television show
Yeah,
all over at least the United States, but possibly other countries. I'm not aware of exactly their
125
reach.
channels. Yeah.
They're out there, so that's good publicity for you. Are you going to be a regular now? And are you taking bookings anywhere else before?
I haven't officially made the announcement that I'm taking bookings, but bookings are open. So yeah, let's go.
And where can people contact you and follow you? You've mentioned TikTok numerous times in this.
Yeah, all my socials are Gabbi Tuft, GABBITUFT. So Instagram, TikTok are my 2 big ones. I'm active on X now. I wasn't active for a long time on X, but I know it's big for wrestling. So recently I've kind of revived that. So it's all the same handle across the board. If you are looking for bookings, you can always email support@GabbiAlonTuft.com, and that will go to my assistant and she will get those to me and we can go from there.
And United Wrestling Network, you're going to be part of this for a while now going forward, part of the
We haven't had any
storylines, I guess.
official talks about going forward with United Wrestling Network, but given the show last night, I'm pretty sure they'd be happy to have us back, and I wouldn't be opposed to work with them again. It was like I said, we tore the house down literally. So we tore the roof off that place. So anytime they want me back, I'd be happy to come back.
And isn't one of WWE's current female stars who Rick also knows? She goes out with one of his friends. She's from United Wrestling Network as well. What forget her name, but she's had a push recently.
Who's that?
Um, I can look her.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I think her real name's Teresa.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I only remember her real name. What the hell is her name? Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark.
Oh,
So she's
Tom Howard's wife, right?
yeah, Tom Howard's. I don't know why I forgot Tom
Yeah,
Howard's name. I know
yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah. That's crazy. Like we used to hang with Tom Howard back when we lived in Southern California. It's so funny. Like when I first met Rick, I didn't come from the wrestling world. I watched when I was a kid, and I had this huge hiatus until I like from 14 to 28 years old where I just didn't watch. And so we used to hang with Rick because we were buddies, and then suddenly there's all these big dudes around us, like Tom Howard, like Sylvester Turkey, Nathan Jones, like all these. Yeah, there's Tom. Look at that. Oh my God, he hasn't changed at all. That's crazy. Like we got some stories we could tell. God, but I can't tell, but we could tell some
Yeah,
stories.
I've heard some about him. He's an
He's he's
interesting guy.
he's cool. We had a good time. Tom was a very cool guy. Yeah, and Zoe is apparently I haven't met her, but Mickey Fitzpatrick, my glam artist, and one of my very very close friends, talks so highly of Zoe as well.
There you go. She got in a similar way. So I hope
Yeah.
you get in, and I hope you get a good contract in either of the companies.
Yeah.
I think judging by the comments, more people want to see you in AEW
Oh, really? Is
overall.
that because I can't see them all? So
Yeah,
that's
you
interesting
don't
to
you
know.
don't want to see them all, but the good thing is, from the start to the finish, the percentage of positive comments increased.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't bother me. Like I know what I am. I'm not
Yeah,
ashamed of it. Like it does not bother me. I'm so used to getting crazy comments, and I know it's like for some people, it's like, what am I looking at? I don't understand, and that's okay. Like I get it. It's fine.
but definitely AEW Tony Khan. If you watch this, people want to see her in AEW. Even this person is
Okay.
saying anywhere, no comment on that because we want her to get the best position. But
Ooh,
this person wants.
goodness sakes.
Well, thank you for talking to me, telling us about your
Yeah.
career and your transition. It's quite a story. You're going to have a hell of a book, but let's hope you can actually
Thanks.
finish your story and like
We need to
get
do that.
a great ending to the book.
Yep.
So I'll let you close this off with whatever
Great.
you want to tell the fans.
Thank you, Hannibal. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I know it's late. We kind of jumped on this last minute. But to all the fans watching, uh, follow because this is unlike anything you've ever seen. I'm bringing something very new to the table. It's unique, it's once in a lifetime. And when you see the match that's going to come out in a couple of days, when you see it, you will understand and you will want more. So tune in, and whether you love me or hate me, that's okay. You're going to be watching.